Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Shields, and I've got a multiple time guest coming back to be on the podcast today, Jamey Schrier. Appreciate you coming back.
I appreciate you having me, Nathan.
Thanks for coming on, man. Today we talked before we started recording. We've been talking about a bunch of different topics and trying to figure out what the connection was. And we want to talk today. I think what we've decided is how do we make more connection with the audience? How do we provide them what they need? How do we really prepare our messaging so that they want what we're giving? And maybe I'm not saying it the right way because we were throwing a lot of things out there, but first of all, let me just say, if you haven't heard my podcast with Jamey in the past, go back to those. I've had you on like 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah, and
At
Jamey's
least, at
got
least two, at least two, perhaps three. Yeah.
yeah, and Jamey's got a great personal story. So if you can find his first podcast from our first year of doing podcasts, 2019, he's go back and listen to it and what drove him to become a coaching consultant now for PT owners. But make sure you go back and listen to those because he's got some great wisdom to share and great value for you. But today we want to talk about how to connect. So where do you want to start this off, Jamey? I don't have a certain direction I'm going with this because I think we can provide some great value with simply the discussion. But where do you want to start here?
Well, let's start by grabbing people's attention. What we're going to do is talk about driving referrals to your business.
Let's do that.
All right, we have attention now, right?
Yeah.
And that's in essence what we're going to discuss today, because
Yeah.
a lot of this, Nathan, as you know, comes down to how do we connect? How do we
Mm-hmm.
um, bring in referrals to our business, starting with understanding how to connect with the people that we want to come in our business. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're all, caring and compassionate people that went out on our own to start a business. And I've never met a business owner that wasn't busy and overwhelmed and stressed in doing that. But yet we all have this challenge of getting consistent referrals in our business that, of course, convert into new patients or new clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we were talking about before is kind of discussing kind of where's the real problem here, not necessarily the
Yeah.
tactical thing, which I can certainly provide some tactics, some tools, some tips, but where really is the problem in doing it, and what
Mm-hmm.
what can typically be done, because
Yeah.
that's the area I've spent a lot of time in personally, being a former private practice owner for 15 years, and now the founder and CEO of Practice Freedom U. This is what we discuss, this is what we live for, this is what we do every single day, is providing this business knowledge to help people grow and flourish,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that we haven't been taught this. We're out there, and
That's
there's not
right.
there's a million clinical courses to help you treat your back better, but you know this kind of stuff, it's a little more rare. So
Yeah, exactly.
where would you like me to
Well,
begin? I can
well, we
go
can
any
talk
direction
about
you like.
yeah, we can talk about driving referrals and kind of start with where you were with your workshops yesterday, and that most people are going to go if once they get a referral for XYZ physical therapy, once they sit in their car with that prescription, they're going to Google XYZ physical therapy and see your website, right? Or they're going to say, my back hurts. How am I going to get over my back? Maybe they come across maybe start with their webpage, because I think what a lot of people nowadays is going to see your presence online. And like your experience yesterday, you shared with me, is like 99% of those physical therapy websites, it's hard to tell exactly what they can do for me, the patient, right? They're so
Yeah.
focused on saying we've got this certification, we do this service, we do that service, we do these kind of things, but they don't ever really get to the messaging just seems to be off, in that they're highlighting themselves and not highlighting the result or the product that they're producing.
Yeah, so if we take kind of a 30,000-foot view here, before we dive into kind of the ground level and get into the weeds a little bit, the 30,000-foot view, Nathan, is But marketing is all about how you show up in the world.
Mm.
That's what marketing is. How your company shows up in the world. It could be, when we talk about personal brand, your personal brand, but even your personal brand is still about how you and your practice, how are you showing up in the world? How do other people see you? So when you look at it from that perspective, you want to consciously and intentionally show up in the world the way you want to show up in the world. Because if not, other people will pigeonhole you, other people will stereotype you that, oh, if you're a physical therapist, yeah, you're good at doing some stretches. But we're the ones that really take care of people with back problems. We're the ones that take care of this. And that has happened to, I know physical therapists for 50, 60, 70 years. And the reason is because we are not communicating clearly and effectively how we want to show up in the world. It's confusing. We have a great saying at Practice Freedom U, and it says, confused people don't. And there's a ellipsis after don't, dot, dot,
Yeah,
dot. And
exactly.
what it means is anytime there is confusion, you are going to have someone that does not make a decision or that's going to be unproductive. If it's your staff confused, they're unproductive. But if there's someone out there in the world that's thinking, oh, I have a back problem, who should I go see? And your message is confusing, it's not clear on whether or not you can help me, then I'll go somewhere else. I'll go to
Mhm.
someone else that's speaking a louder message, a clearer message, maybe a message that's showing up either on the website. So that's one of the big things that, again, from a higher level perspective, which as owners we have to take that perspective first. We never want to dive in first. We have to look at it from that perspective first, so we can make sure we're moving in the direction that we want. So that's number one. Marketing equals how we show up in the world. Because if you don't, someone else will have a plan for you and start to dictate how you show up in the world.
How do you
That's
recommend?
that's
Yeah, how
that's
do you
number one.
recommend someone? How do you recommend someone really find that message? How do you help someone get clarity on their message? Because
So
that can be
glad
a
you asked.
difficult one. I know for Will and I with our practice, it took some work, talking it out. We really had to get back to what was our purpose and get clear on that. What were our values, and start there before we can start talking about what we can offer to the world and how we present to the world. And that it kind of derives from that. That's where we came from. What do you recommend?
Well, yeah, Nathan, but that's not fun. I don't want to do that. That's yeah, I've read in books you start with that. That's not fun. And yet here you are saying we start with mission, vision, values. You know what we do in our program? We start with mission, vision, values. Do you know what Donald Miller, Michael Hyatt, Tony Robbins, people in other industries, you know where they start? A mission, vision, values. Now you might call it something unique, you
Sure.
might wrap it up in a different bow, but that's where you have to start. You
Mhm.
have to start with, well, what are you about? Before you communicate that out in the world, you have to ask yourself, what are you about? Because I'm going to be very honest with everybody. The world does not need another physical therapy practice. We will survive without you. However, the world needs you.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure that you are bringing something that's impactful and something that's important. And you have that ability to do that. But I don't want you to show up just like someone else. Be unique. Communicate at least to yourself, what is your practice about? Your
Mhm.
vision or your mission. What are you about? Where are you going? What are you trying to do? What impact are you trying to make in the world? What impact are you making in your community? Why did you get into um, physical therapy, let's say? Why did you open up your practice? Like, these
Mhm.
are the questions that make you think. Now, I get that most of us are impatient and we want this now, But these questions are going to come up again and again and again
Hmm.
as you start marketing and building your referral sources and building your presence online and doing the other things that we do to drive referrals. So we have to start there for sure.
Is it any wonder then that, I've had marketing people on in the past, they say, if you can improve the customer experience and create a culture, that can improve your marketing efforts 3 times. And I think that's where this starts from. When you're clear on your message, your purpose, mission, vision, values, all those things, then that drives the culture of the business. And then you start developing something that people can get behind and people can buy into. Because remember, when people buy, they never buy logically, they buy on emotion. And so if you can translate that into your message, that means so much more, and the connection becomes greater, right? It's really hard for
Absolutely.
me to work with PT owners because many of them don't have a clear purpose, right? I don't know if you've had the same experience, but that's where we'll start as I'm working with clients is, okay, let's get clear on this. And their purpose, and you've probably seen this just as I have, is typically we're going to be the best physical therapy that provides hands-on treatment and a one-on-one approach.
Oh,
And yeah, yeah, you and
sorry, I was yawning when you
yeah,
said
yeah,
we're going to be the commitment to excellence, the best therapist place. Oh, by the
yes,
way, that was mine.
yeah, exactly. And that's
The
what
commitment to excellence. I
yeah,
got it from the Oakland Raiders back in the day.
yeah, no matter, no surprise that we're a commoditized entity at this point because we all say the
100%.
same thing, right? But
100%.
your purpose is not your physical therapy. That's not the physical therapy is not your purpose. It's not your why. It's,
No, no.
the physical therapy ends up just being the vehicle through which you live out that purpose, right? And so
Exactly.
you could be a roofer and live out that purpose as long as you're clear on that purpose, right? And what it's doing for the community and those around you. So it's really important to get that clear, and that then drives the marketing and can improve referrals because people buy into that culture. They buy into what you're doing so much
Yeah.
more than the services you provide.
Yeah. So, the way we look at it is, or the way your um, prospect, your client, your patient is going to look at it
Hmm.
as they have a problem, they want a result, and what you're providing as a therapy provider is you're providing the solution to that. You're the
Hmm.
bridge.
Yeah.
Now, there's lots of solutions. And like you said, the physical therapy has been considered a commodity, which means physical therapy is physical therapy. We're just kind of grouped into it's all basically the same. It doesn't really matter. Now, it's interesting if you ask any physical therapist that, they would not say that at all. But if you ask other outsiders, they may say that. So that goes back to my point that if you don't get really clear in what you're about, then other people will just tell you what you're about. But to your point that you said, if you provide a better customer experience or a customer journey, as it's often called, the hero, it comes from the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Um, that is critical in how you can generate referrals. But what you have to understand before that,
Hmm.
after the vision, after the mission, after you divide those values and those principles in which you live by and which you understand and what your business is about, the next most important step is really understanding your audience. That means you have to, first of all, figure out who is your audience. Let me tell you a quick story. So, we have something called the velvet rope policy. So, imagine this, you go down to Miami, of course, COVID is over. You go down to Miami and you're walking along and you see this club and you hear the music going boom, 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 and you see this velvet rope. What's the first thing that you think when you see the velvet rope and there's people on the other side of that? What do you think, Nathan?
There's got to be some special people in there.
Yeah. And there's special people on the other side of that rope.
Hmm.
They're VIPs.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, what, man, they must be really important people. And then you might also be thinking, Am I one of those very important people? Am I a VIP?
Yeah.
So here's what happens. Here's the psychology behind the velvet rope. The velvet rope is really about that velvet rope is the target audience of that club.
Mm-hmm.
These are the celebrities, the big people, the big spenders, the people that will attract other people to the club.
Mm-hmm.
So that's their audience. But here's the mistake that people make in our businesses. A, we're not clear on our target audience.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we discussed yesterday in our practice transformation workshop that came up is I'm afraid of becoming too niche.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I can help so many people, and they go wide. They
Mm-hmm.
say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. But when you do that, nobody knows exactly can you help them.
Mm-hmm.
By having that velvet rope, by being very clear, not only do you really dial in your messaging to your ideal audience, but guess what? Other people go into that club too, not just the VIPs.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, most of the club is not made up of the VIPs. Most of the club are the regular people outside. So the false misnomer, the myth that is happening is that if you spend your time focusing on your niche audience, your target audience, that you're not going to attract other people. And the opposite is true.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of examples.
Oh, totally.
One, Amazon. When Amazon first started, what did they sell? Only.
Books.
They
Books and
sold
only
books.
books. That's it.
They did not start with selling 42 billion items as they do now. They focused on books. They dialed in their messaging, they dialed in their operations, they dialed all that in. And once that was dialed in, they started to expand what they offered, right? So that's a perfect example of niche.
Mm-hmm.
Another example came up yesterday in our conversation, Lululemon. So it came up kind of funny. Someone brought it up, and I bought a pair recently of ABC pants. You ever heard of ABC pants?
I've got a couple of them.
All right. So people were cracking up because what does ABC stand for?
Anti-ball crusher.
Anti-ball crusher pants. So a couple of friends of mine were wearing them. They played golf with them. They went out to dinner with them.
Yeah.
They hung out with them a lot of times all on the same day. They never
Yep.
changed.
That's
And
right.
I'm like, that's cool. They're kind of comfy. They're stretching.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm Lululemon's target ideal customer?
No.
Heck no. I'm the furthest from that. But it doesn't matter. I understand who their customer is. My wife wears some of that stuff, but I still paid them money to purchase something.
Mhm.
And when they do an ad specifically on the ABC pants, that ad's going to be reaching their particular audience, which is you and me.
Mm.
Basically, your 30, 35-year-old to 60-year-old male. That's who they're going to target. So one of the
Yeah.
things that we have to do right from the get-go, right after we established our vision and the mission and the values, is really dial in our audience.
Mhm.
Because when you dial in your target audience, you're clear on their fears and their worries and their wants and their needs and their frustrations. When you are clear on that, that becomes gold because that's the messaging
Mhm.
that you will use. You can use it in workshops. You
That's
can
right.
use it when you speak to referral sources that
Mhm.
I know seems to be a dying focus right now with people, but
It's not going away.
oh my God, people in our profession, we are specialists. People are referred to as specialists. That's a fact. They are referred to as specialists. But what we're talking about a lot of is that messaging online.
Mhm.
What is our website's message? What are we putting out there if you're using social media, Facebook, or whatever? You see, I don't think you need to be an expert at being the social media person or being, you
No.
mentioned you've had a lot of other internet marketers or
Mm.
internet people on the site. Hey, there are talented people that can help
Mhm.
you do it.
Definitely.
But our job is to understand our audience and be able to speak clearly in our messaging to our audience, no matter what medium it's in.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you hire someone that can help you put all the tactful stuff together in order to do that. So that's
Yeah,
the next step, Nathan,
I think so.
that we need to begin before diving into all the other stuff.
Yeah, when it I had a bad experience with a website designer that I was sharing with you prior to our conversation, and it led back to, and as I was discussing that experience with my coach, it led back to the fact that I wasn't clear on my message. They're kind of lost in the woods as to what to design for me because my message wasn't clear. And the same can be said for the physical therapy teams. If they're not clear with their message and who that specific avatar is, get it down to, is it a man or a woman? Is it how old are they? What are their cares and concerns? What does their family and community look like? All those things, get really detailed to that so that you can really speak to that. And like you said, the fear comes up then, well, what about everyone else? Well,
Yeah.
I don't, like you said, I don't know how many times I've seen it. My friend Angie McGilvery down in Florida, they had the hurricane come through. They had to start all over again. They decided, no, we're going to do it this way this time. They were going to focus on social media, but their focus was going to be on 30-year-old female CrossFit athletes. That's their avatar. Well,
Mhm.
guess what? They're busier than they've ever been before now because, yeah, they treat those CrossFit athletes really, really well. But CrossFit athletes have families. They have friends who aren't CrossFit athletes. So guess who, if they're getting premium care, well, you and I both know, if I have a rotator cuff issue, I want to get my rehab from the guy that works with the Major League Baseball operations, right? I don't
AKA, you want the specialists.
I want the specialist. I want the guy who's known for being really good with athlete rotator cuffs, right? Over and over again. I'm nowhere near an athlete and I'm not going to throw a ball more than 50 miles an hour. But I
Oh,
want that dude.
man, better
I'm
than
going to
me.
get so as you niche, right? So as you niche, you aren't limiting yourself. You're just saying, here's where we focus, and you can also be part of the group. FYI, we're still going to take you, but that it allows you then to really focus in your message. And like I
You
said,
know who has done this really well? And this is an example that will hit home. Um, Surgeons have done this.
mm,
Everywhere across the country, if you look at a place that, a multiple place that does, like, let's say, orthopedic surgery,
yeah,
what you will see on their site, you will see very clearly the surgeon and the specialty, the back guy, the knee woman,
the shoulder guy.
the ankle specialist, the
Mhm,
shoulder specialist.
yeah.
All right? Because what they realized is that people are referred to a specialist. Nobody wants to see, you know what, I have a back problem. Can I see the generalist? I want to see the generalist, not the specialist in shoulders. I want to see the generalist. But here's what you don't see. I have a good friend, Dr. Goldsmith. Great guy on the site. He's the back guy. What's interesting is he tells me that like 60 or 70% of his patients are not back problems. And I
Mm,
said, well, wait a minute, you're the back guy. He goes, well, yeah, but they call me for everything. And then, like you said, and they refer their friend, and they refer their neighbor
right.
and their kids and their spouses. And I'm like, and then as just a business owner, it just like hits me. I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And then we go on the site. So, in the workshop yesterday, I was telling you, we had one of the participants go on their site, and they're a pediatric therapist. We went on the site, and there was a picture of a child on the site, but there was really nothing verbally saying what their niche was. There was just a
Mm,
picture of a kid, and then it had like all of the different diagnoses, all the different treatment techniques. Like it was way too much information, but it never answered the question. So, can you help me with my problem? So it became confusing. And she's been doing this a long time. And she was like, oh my God, I never realized that. And I was like, well, how much time have you spent getting clear on who your audience is and what your message is?
mhm.
Like, what do you want them to know that is important to them, not you? See, what's important to us is our certifications.
Yeah.
What's important to us is how much information we know. We
Mhm.
want to throw up on people of how many years we've been doing this and how many certifications. You know what? That's fine. Do that at your next conference with your other colleagues. You can show off all that stuff. Your audience doesn't care. Your audience, the person that has the back pain, just wants to know, can you help them with their back pain so they can go back to playing basketball? If the answer is yes, they come to you. If the answer is no, they don't. Either way is fine. But when the answer is I'm not sure, then you are potentially
Somebody.
losing who knows how many potential referrals. And it's not just a financial thing. You're losing the ability to help somebody, which is what we do, which is why we do all this. So they
Mhm.
may go somewhere else and maybe not get the help, or they may not go nowhere and just try to look for the magic pill, even though you could help them so well, but they don't know that. They
Mhm.
don't know, Nathan, what you know. And
Yeah.
that's that right there. If you do those first two steps, that mission, vision, values, and really start getting clear on your audience, start diving in, like you said, tell me everything about them. You know, where do they live? How much they make? What do they like? Do they have a dog or do they have a cat? Are they married? Are they not? You know, what kind of car do they drive? Like the more information you know about them, the more you'll be able to connect with them. And
Mhm.
that's what this game is about. That's
Mhm.
where the art of marketing comes in. It's the ability to connect with people. So if you have to start there, if you start there and find a good reputable person with, you know, let's say your digital, your website or other digital things, you are going to be much more successful
Mm.
at generating referrals consistently because you know how to connect with your audience.
Mhm.
That's the part that's missed. We take a bunch of money that we don't have, we give it to somebody in the hopes that they're going to do all of this work. The expectation is I give them money, they give me a bunch of referrals. And what they're saying is, yes, I can help you get referrals, but I can't answer all these
I
questions
don't know
for
what you
you.
want me to say.
Right. So hopefully they can do what they promised to do, which is the links and the connections and put the images up and put all the stuff up. But that messaging, I've spent, like you, tens of thousands of dollars. I won't call it a waste. I will call it a lesson. It was an expensive lesson I
There's a
had.
tuition.
I went to school and
That's right. You paid.
I paid $50,000. I got an F, but I learned.
That's right.
I learned that yes, there were some things that this person in this company did that I'm like, I wish I knew, but a lot of it was I wasn't being clear in what
Yeah.
exactly I wanted. That was the problem because I wasn't clear.
Mhm.
That's on me, and that's on every single owner. We have to start focusing on that, which of course begs the question, and I think we've talked about this in the past, which is, but I'm busy, I don't have time, I'm dealing with all that stuff. And I'm like, well, there's the real issue
Yeah.
is what do you focus on and how do you carve out time? But that could certainly
Exactly.
be for another time management
That's a
topic.
completely other episode, right? Yeah, as you're talking about that, and what I remember, I think I had Aaron LeBauer on recently. I know I had
Uh-huh.
Aaron LeBauer on recently. So
Yeah.
if you don't know Aaron, he has his own cash-based or out-of-network private practice and is successful at coaching others and setting up their own cash-based private practices.
Yeah.
And interestingly, in his practice, they don't talk about physical therapy. They don't bring up the words physical therapy. They talk about what they can do for their patients. And they actually kind of have an a la carte menu. Part of what we can provide you is physical therapy. That's one of the menu items, right? And so I think that's really interesting because I brought him on to talk about how to market like an out-of-network therapist, how to market like an out-of-network owner to ask someone to pay cash when they could go down the street and have their insurance pay for it all. I mean, that's a higher level of marketing acumen that you've got to attain to get people to pay cash for something that could be for free, right? And so it
Yeah.
was really,
Yes and no. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, yes and no, Nathan. So give me a chance to respond, but
That I will. Well,
finish.
I think it's really interesting though that his focus wasn't physical therapy.
Right. 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 Yeah.
That's not what we provide. Yeah, it's a service that we offer, but that's not what we do per se. What we
Yeah.
do is we live out our purpose through physical, that we live out providing you a pain-free lifestyle, getting you back to the functional activities you want to do, helping you enjoy your family and your friends and your neighbors, helping you play with your dog. That's what we do. Physical therapy just happens to be a vehicle.
Yeah, that's a great point. Stephen Covey, in his book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, said, "Begin with the end in mind."
Yeah.
One of his famous kind of sayings that
Yeah.
everyone grabs and uses, like me. Begin with the end in mind. But what does that actually mean? That actually means is the end. In this case, the end is the outcome.
Mm.
And what people want, they are coming to you with a problem. They're coming to you with pain. They're coming to you with a disability of some sort. They're coming to you with balance issues. They're coming to you with their kid not able to play a sport. They're coming to you with a problem. And what they want is the outcome. Clear as day. That's what they want. And by the way, that's what you want when you do the same thing. You want the outcome. What is not as important is the part where we spent our whole life, which is learning the solution from the problem that they have to the pain. That's not where the conversation begins.
Mm.
Is it important that they understand? Yes, perhaps. It all depends if they have those kind of questions. A lot of times they don't ask every little thing that you're going to do. They just connect with you, build rapport, trust you, and say, hey, this is the place for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want to know so exactly what the process is. And of course, you can share that with them. But what has to be clear first is can you help them solve their problem?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, the biggest problem, which I know Aaron well. I've been on his podcast as well. Smart dude. And he understands the fact that the less you can talk about I hate saying this, but I love saying this, the widget of how you help somebody. A widget can be a product, a widget can be a service. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about the widget service, the dry needling widget service, the myofascial release widget service, the exercise widget service, the pull therapy widget service. These are bridges, these are solutions to help people get what they want. People don't care about that
Mm-hmm.
initially. They
Yes.
may or may not care eventually. What they care about is, I'm in pain. Are you going to help me get here? And if so, what do I do? How do I get with you?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be clear on that. And as an owner, as a potential director or manager of your business, and of course, as a clinician, it is very confusing in our heads that that's how our people are thinking. So we need to make sure that when we're looking at marketing and we're looking at our business, that we step all the way out to that 30,000-foot view and make sure we put this marketing hat on to really start looking at our business from their perspective,
Mm-hmm.
from the perspective of our avatar, of our ideal client. When you do, things will start to become so much clearer, and
Mm-hmm.
you will start to be able to get more people coming to you because they will understand the question: can Nathan help me get what I want? So
That's all they
you
want to
had
know.
something else about cash base, and can we operate out of network? I'd love to kind of dive into that. I mean,
Well, but to
but
put
that
a
wasn't the
bow on it,
point. I know.
yeah, but to put and also, well, to add on there in my conversation with Aaron, and to also add on to what you're saying, is one of his first questions in that initial evaluation goes back to, um, imagine 6 weeks from now and you've completed your physical therapy. What would have happened? What does your life look like to say that this interaction with us and what we're doing to help you with your shoulder, back, knee has been a success? What does that look like? So starting with the end in mind, he takes that so far as to put it in part of his initial evaluation process, and to get compliance, to get buy-in, to say, okay, I can help you do that. And then on subsequent follow-up visits, is that's what they're going to allude to. Okay, remember at our first visit, you said at the end of our treatment, we want to get here. How much closer are we to that? Well, this is what we need to get there. And it's less so much about me and my OCS and my ECS and my CSCS and CSS and
A lot of
the
acronyms.
no one cares. Yeah, no one cares
Nobody
about
cares.
all the letters, but it's what can you do to help me get to that end goal. And so he takes
Yeah.
it not just from his marketing and getting that message clear, actually then putting it into his first initial visit with that patient is, okay, tell me, what are you here for? What is this? What do we need to get to in order for this to be successful? And keeps
Yeah.
compliance that way.
Oh, it's huge. And when we talk about, so we talked about one thing right now when it comes to driving referrals. So there's three ways to get referrals in your business to kind of step out of the fray here for a minute. There's three ways
Mhm.
to get referrals. You can get referrals online, right?
Mhm.
We know about that through your website and through different social channels. You can, of course, get referrals through referral sources, and referral sources do not necessarily mean just doctors. There's lots of other people that have influence over your audience. Of
Mhm.
course, when you're clear on your audience, you'll know who those people are.
Yeah.
And then the third way to get referrals is one of the ways that we love to get referrals, which is word of mouth.
Right.
Word of mouth referrals happen when you're delivering an amazing experience to people.
Mhm.
And we want the experience to be consistent, and we want the experience to happen regardless of who they are or when they come in. And that's kind of what you're talking about with what Aaron was saying is when you start focusing on the experience starts when they call your office, and it
Mhm.
starts when they come in and go
Mhm.
through the evaluation. So you're always looking at the experience that you're delivering from their point of view. And we can go into lots of detail about how to do that and all the different touch points of that experience leading all the way up to the discharge and then the experience after the discharge. So that increases the ability for one patient to turn into multiple patients by
Mhm.
referring others and really
Mhm.
just shouting on the mountaintops how great you are.
Mhm.
So to the one point about begin with the end in mind during an evaluation, it's kind of a funny story. So I had a mentor for many years, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. We may have talked about that,
Mhm.
and
Great
he's the
book he
one
just
that's
put out, by the way.
phenomenal,
Like changed my
phenomenal.
who not how was
Yeah,
crazy awesome. And I'm sorry to digress, but I once you said Dan Sullivan, I had to talk about his book.
yeah, and he didn't actually put out the book.
But he didn't write the book.
He didn't write the
That was the
book.
best one. Yeah, so check it
So
out. But go ahead, Dan Sullivan.
yeah, yeah. So that's obviously one of the most powerful things that he always talked about is delegating and the who, not how.
Yeah.
But he one of his biggest things that he developed was something called the R factor question. It's called the
Ooh,
relationship question, and the
okay.
relationship question says, if we were sitting here blank time from now, and we were going to look back on today, what would have to happen? Personally, professionally, depending who you're talking to, for you to feel good about your experience or you feel happy. So, I mean, it's once you see that, you realize that there's lots of ways to take that question and that perspective and use it throughout your thing. So Aaron, using that question, hey, if
Yeah.
we're sitting here 8 weeks from now, what would have to happen for you to feel good about your progress here?
Hmm.
Because you're taking people first of all into the future,
Yeah.
and into the possibility of what is going to have you feel good. But that's definitely some tactics and strategies of how to connect with people, build rapport, which of course when you do that you reduce cancellations.
Hmm.
The key is driving the referrals to begin with, and then of course that happens in one of those three
That's right.
areas through a referral, through an internal referral or word of mouth, and of
Hmm.
course, um, you know, putting out there in that digital world and allow
Hmm.
people to come to you and come to your website. But it really starts with
Yeah.
that getting that clear messaging. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't
And I think
state
it's
that.
more important than it has been in the past. And I think we saw that with the pandemic where we couldn't visit doctors' offices and there was no way to connect with our community unless we did use other avenues to get to them. And so it's really important that we're really clear on that message so we can connect with our community directly and have more of that connection without relying specifically on the physicians all the time, right?
Yeah, and you and I talked about this before we got on, and it's kind of I want to caution people not to just jump ship and say, oh my God, it's not where the doctor's at. It's all online. We got to go online. We got to get
No.
the people online. People are referred to a specialist. People ask their friends. I have this thing called listserv in our community. We have a community of like 400 houses. Every day there is someone saying, does anyone have a recommendation for blank?
Yeah,
And many times a week, it's always something health related,
totally.
right? And what's amazing is multiple people then provide the solution
Hmm.
or provide the answer. Like,
Hmm.
hey, you got to see my person. And
Yeah.
sometimes they're so adamant about their person. Like they're
Yes.
like, oh my God, you gotta go see them. I'll give you their information. Hey, I'll call them for you. I'll help you set up an appointment. Like these are your raving fans. This is how people are referred to specialists. Now they may then go online to do it, or the reverse
Hmm.
will happen. They're online, maybe your Facebook ad or social media post comes up and they go, okay, whatever. Then the person mentions it, you're like, yeah, I've heard of them. They don't know where, but they saw you out in the universe. They saw you out in their world. And because most of us are within a community, we're not trying to promote ourselves nationally. We're in a community. It's easier for you to do that because it's a confined area.
Hmm.
So I just want to caution people not to stop building relationships with referral sources, with referral partners. Here's a tip on that. I want you to look at your referral relationships, people that have A, influence over your audience. You have to identify your audience. We've already spoken about that.
Hmm.
And B, I want you to look at them as they're your client, they're your patient,
Hmm.
right? I want you to start looking at the referral partner as they're your target audience, not who they're referring.
Hmm.
They are. So what would you want to know about them? Would
Hmm.
you just show up? I'm actually have a vlog or blog coming out that talks about one night stands. You're gonna love it. So it talks about we treat a lot of our referral sources like one night stands.
Hmm.
It's a one-way relationship, and we just want to get what we want,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We want to call them up. Hey, I'd like to meet with you because I really just want you to send me some referrals. Can you just do
Hmm.
that, please?
Hmm.
And you know what? That's not a relationship.
No.
So to your point, COVID, really said, okay, we can't visit doctors anymore. Absolutely. And I'm glad that happened because we have to wake up. People have been asleep at the wheel and not woken up to the fact that it's about relationships. It's always been. And if you start to focus on these doctors and really try to create a relationship and truly try to be interested in them and see how you might collaborate and serve them better, which of course ends up meaning helping them somehow with your expertise and your solution to their clients and
Hmm.
patients,
Hmm.
that mindset shift will help you develop key relationships. And for most practice owners, let's say 500,000, million and a half in revenue, you don't need many relationships to blow away your numbers. I mean,
Right.
get a handful of people, get 5 good relationships, sending you just a couple people a week.
Hmm.
That's 50 new patients a month.
That's right.
Most likely you would blow away your numbers beyond belief, and your next problem would be hiring therapists to see
That's
everybody
right.
or getting a bigger space,
That's
which
right.
right now probably isn't a problem because there's plenty of space out there available.
It's true.
But that mindset shift of looking at them the same way you would look at your patient. So you want to have 2 avatars.
Hmm.
You want to have a referral source avatar and a patient avatar.
I love that.
Start there.
Hmm. Yeah, I love
And
that because you never really kind of try to think about who your perfect referral source is or what your message should be. What do they want to know, and who is actually seeing your perfect avatar patient. That's a good mindset shift as you're considering your marketing strategies, because those guys that I know, guys and girls that I know that that did fairly well through the pandemic or got through it okay were the people that were they had the doctor's cell phone numbers because they had developed that relationship over time where they didn't have to rely on going into the office and dropping off candy. They had gotten the relationship with the physician to the point where they could say, hey, how are you guys doing? Do you need anything from us? Yes, we're still open, FYI. And they could market to them directly, and because they had taken the time to develop relationships with these people.
Exactly. And when you develop relationships, unlike a one night stand, when you develop a real relationship, it can withstand things like this.
Yeah.
It can withstand competitors,
Mm-hmm.
people kind of trying to move in a little bit. It can
Mm-hmm.
withstand a lot of things. So, again, it kind of comes back to, well, why haven't we looked at it that way? Because our perspective with doctors is they have served one purpose, and that purpose is to feed me people. And if they
Mm-hmm.
don't, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And this is a systemic problem that we need to shift the way we think about this.
Mm-hmm.
They are could be the greatest collaborators with us if we step up our game and really start to look at it as how we can work together. How can I provide, a service and help to you? And that
Mm-hmm.
means increasing our own communication skills, increasing our ability to connect and build rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are things we haven't been specifically taught in that we have to learn. And when you
Yeah.
do, there's not a lack of people that need us.
Mm-mm.
There's not. What was the latest APTA number? Like 8% of the population actually comes to physical therapy, but like 150 million actually need or could benefit from physical therapy.
Exactly.
Let's see, 8%. What the heck's where's the other 92? It's not because we're not good at what we do. It's
No.
not because you're not knowledgeable enough or smart enough. It's because we are not spending time educating and learning how to connect with them, with their wants and their needs.
Mm-hmm.
When we start to do that, there is plenty for everyone.
Yeah, it's really sad to hear about physical therapists who worry about the competitor within a couple mile radius. And it's understandable to know what they're doing, but because it feels like with a mindset of, without that with a mindset of scarcity, then we're all fighting over that 8%. Whereas if we improved our message and got that out to the community, we could be playing in a much bigger pool that is 92% of 150 million and not just fighting, quote unquote, over the 8% that are getting the therapy that they need. There's so much more to be had if we got clear on our message and focused on those people who really need it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the shameful part of it is a lot of these people that you're referring to are very smart, talented people that could
Mhm.
provide, that are providing just in a very, very small way, amazing services, but
Yeah.
they don't look at their practice. They don't look at it as a business. And more importantly, they don't look at themselves as an owner, as
Mhm.
this CEO. And of
Mhm.
course, as the CEO, your job is to 100% focus on not only where the company is going, but really servicing your customer. And you have at least two customers. You have the
Mhm.
patient that comes in, and you have the people that refer patients that come
That's
in.
right.
If you spent just a little bit of time and just did some basic stuff, you can't get any less people. Right? Connecting with people, building
That's right.
rapport,
That's right.
showing them value. You can't get any less people. You
Yeah,
can only go up. And that's what we've seen
that's
with
right.
with our program and with our clients. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing. It's just,
Totally.
this is why we do this, right? I mean, my
Right.
mission is to help every single practice owner and practice that want to build and grow to do it because we have an endless number of people who need our services.
Hmm.
It's
It's
not
true.
because our pie is only 10 people. That would be a problem.
Hmm.
It's a blue ocean out there.
That's
It's
true.
endless.
Hmm.
And we do such great work. We just need to get as I like to refer, we just need to have a little B school for the practice owners.
That's
Need to get
right.
a little business
That's right.
education in the practice owners, and that's what we try to
That's right.
provide and help them in.
That's right. Well, if we're going on for a while now, and I appreciate you taking the time, man. We could go on for more, right? We had so many tangents we could have gone down there. But tell the audience if people wanted to get in touch with you, Jamey, how do they do that?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, go to practicefreedomu.com, and it's the letter U, practicefreedomu.com. And you can go, you can check us out. Also on there, you can download my book, The Practice Freedom Method, the Smart Owner's Guide to Work Less, Earn More, and Live Your Passion. Not a bad three
I
things to
love it.
do.
I love it.
Um,
Nice job,
so
man.
so it's, yeah, it's just about my experiences as a practice owner and all the
Right.
trials and tribulations and disasters I've had, but I was
Right.
able to figure out a path out, and now just trying to impart some knowledge to help some other people.
Well, cool, cool, cool. Thanks again for taking the time, man. I appreciate it as always.
Hey man, my pleasure. Really appreciate you and what you're doing, Nathan.
Thanks, Jamey.